What's up, y'all? This is Edgar at H2G TV. I just want to say say hello to a dear friend of mine, someone who I've known for a very long time, who I've given grief to every once in a while, drove crazy, former colleague, great person, Chris Bernard. Chris, what's up?
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
How you making out during this quarantine? You getting a haircut yet?
Yo, you know what's funny?
Huh?
My birthday's coming up, right? And I think I'm gonna get a haircut I'm going to get a haircut from my old barber friend of mine, man. That used to cut my hair all the time when I was with the Knicks. I think he still cut the Knicks a little bit. Jay the barber, up in Westchester County, because it's my birthday, so I'm gonna get a nice.
My birthday's next week, so
my birthday's Saturday.
Yeah, I know. We both Virgo, so we good.
No. Hold on. I'm on the cusp. I'm 22nd, so I associate more with Leo.
Oh, whatever. Okay. You are a Leo, though, because you are hard-headed. What's going on? I know you don't have a lot of time, but, one of the things is I've been doing this show, and I want to shine light on some of the great people that I know, and you're definitely one of them. And, you came into my life, your first year with the Knicks was what year?
Wow, 2001?
2001, that's when you came into my life. But before that, you was a known All-American, All-City player at Queens.
In Queens?
In Queens. He was All-City.
Was that All-City or was that all Borough? I don't remember. I don't know about being All-City.
Huh?
I think I was all Borough.
So let's talk about, we'll start there. Like, what made you love basketball?
Honestly, bro, man, I fell in love with basketball probably because of my parents, man. So I started out a football guy. So, I'm Jamaican, right? Come from Jamaica, young age. And I didn't even start playing basketball organized until high school, which was 9th grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
We used to play on the street, play on the block and all that. But I think it was more so because my parents, my father especially, Patrick Ewing. My father was like, Jamaican, man, Patrick. And I think that's when I really started liking basketball. And then, then the Bulls, you had the Knicks. I was like, man. So that's when I really started getting involved, man, around that. Around the age of 13, right before I got to high school. So that's when I really started getting into it.
Well, high school, you become a late bloomer. You become all city in Queens, all Queens. I'll put it like that for you. And then you get recruited, and the first spot you go to is Rider.
Yeah, Rider University.
And why did you pick Rider?
It's crazy because I look at it now, right? So it was down to Hofstra and Rider. And the head coach of Hofstra, first year, and he told me all the time I was his first recruit. And the first recruit to tell him no was Jay Wright, coach of Villanova. Right? Jay Wright, it was pretty cool, man. He was sitting there, he looking at the football field. It was like, oh man, he was selling me. He was good, right? The problem was I wanted to leave New York, Long Island. I wanted to leave that area and not go too far, right? But go close enough where my parents could come see me play, right? So you had Hofstra, which was too close, and Hofstra, which was also just getting started with a coach that wasn't necessarily proven in that with that team yet. Comparing that to Rider, who was going to the tournament every year. With a system that was like, all right, a program that was moving along. And so it's crazy because back then, Jay Wright was like, yeah, I want you to play like this kid that goes to Drexel University. The kid was Malik Rose. He's like our boy till this day, right? It's so crazy. He's like, I want you to play like this kid that go. And he was showing me tape on Malik Rose while he was at Drexel and me coming into college. And that's the irony. Anyway, so I ended up choosing Rider because they were going to the tournament every year, and it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours from my parents' house. So I just kind of want to step away from the environment a little bit.
But then you leave after 1 year, and you transfer.
Yeah.
You go to Adelphi, and you play for a coach that's coaching in the NBA right now.
Dude, I'm blessed, bro. It's crazy, right? Another crazy situation. Yeah, I left Ryder. Coach, me and the coach at the time were bumping heads. And we didn't really get along. And so I was like, I gotta leave. I gotta get out of here because, this wasn't gonna work out. So I ended up leaving Ryder, going to Adelphi University. And I used to play for Running Rebels back in the day, which in Queens. Coach and the owner was Rebel. And Rebel put me on to Adelphi. I'm like, I don't want to go D2. He's like, well, you got to sit out of the year, Chris, if you don't. I'm like, no, I want to play. Forget all that, right? So end up choosing Adelphi, going to play for Coach Cliff. And Coach Cliff, for y'all who don't know Coach Cliff, on the court, he's a beast. Like, he's coming at you, ready to take your head off.
Steve Clifford, coach of the Orlando Magic.
Orlando Magic, that's right. Right? Take your head off type of guy on the court. Off the court, he was like, you could talk to him about anything. Right? Anything. So it was kind of cool to kind of have a coach like that. Like, I respected his actions on the court because you want to make you better, and you're making men too, right? You're creating men. So that was really cool. And then off the court, we could have a separate conversation that's not influenced by anything that took place on the court, right? Which was really cool. Anyway, so I chose Adelphi, went to Adelphi, had a great time, great college experience.
Yeah, 20-win seasons.
Yeah. We went to the tournament every year. And it's funny because the competition at that time, I can't speak for now, but like my team had like 3 Division I transfers at that time, and then maybe even more going along those years. And we played against a competition was pretty tough. I was so surprised, like, D2 ain't no joke. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we had fun, man. Coach Cliff had a great system, man. We went out there and just ball hard, bro. It was a good time. So Adelphi, no regrets leaving Ryder, going to Adelphi and having a good time.
And another thing that we don't talk about, you're actually a Hall of Famer at Adelphi.
Yeah. I always tell people all the time, man. I'm like, yo, listen. I said I wasn't a big time scorer. That wasn't my thing. My thing was defense. I wanted to lock people up, guard 2, 3s, 4s, and 5s. Like, I took pride in all that. That's a Jamaican to me, right? So that was fun, man. When they hit me up and say, hey, man, we want to induct you into the Hall of Fame, I thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, I wasn't a big scorer by any means, but I scored over 1,000 points in 3 years at Adelphi. And I thought, they thought it was worthy of accomplishment of like the Hall of Fame, and it was good, man. It was a big time honor, to be honest with you.
So after you graduate, you become an assistant coach.
Right. Yeah.
For 2 seasons.
Yeah.
What made you say, you know what? I think this is going to be the path that I wanted to take at that time?
All right. So I've been plagued with back injuries, back problems for my entire, starting at Ryder, right? Because Ryder, we did some serious lifting and workouts, right? So, I had some back problems, and, I had, if I remember correctly, Coach Clifford, he's the one that told me, like, I had 2 offers overseas, right? One was in Australia, one was in London, right? London had a lot less money than Australia, but Australia didn't have great money either. And I'm like, man, my money ain't great. I'm talking about going to Australia over London. I'm like, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. You know what? I need to figure this thing out. And I was a little nervous, bro. After you went to college, and you really, as much as you're a student athlete and education comes first, you're a basketball player. So like basketball was your life. It was your everything. And to make a decision at that point, I was just lost for a long time. And eventually, Coach Ferry came to me, Jim Ferry, who took over after Steve Clifford, came to me and offered me the position as a grad assistant. And I, you know what? I said, this is what I know. So yes, Coach, I would love the opportunity. And I was like, I really thought my path was 100% coaching at that point, and I was down for it because I love the game. And I love, and I was the type of guy that actually led by example. And so it was nothing for me to say, jump in that role and have some fun with it.
Yeah, as an assistant coach at that time, what did you learn the most about, player and coach to make the difference?
At that point, I'm not sure. Well, during that process, I mean, it was just the difference. The only real difference, especially as a grad assistant, was just the maturity, right? You have to, you have to be more mature than you did as a student running around the campus and, being a basketball player running around the campus. Is like you have to grow up at this point and say, not even grow up. It's professionalism. Okay, this is where you have to. Professionalism is somewhat different. I'm a coach. These guys are gonna. I'm looking to teach the game to these athletes or teach life to these athletes, right? So therefore, I need to start living life a certain way, and that was like what I learned initially right away was like, all right, Chris, you have to be a professional in order for these athletes to, learn from you and want to learn from you and respect you in that way, in that role.
So after 2 years, you decide to leave. And why was that?
So I got an offer. I got a job offer.
So when we first met,
yeah, right? Welcome to that building. I got a job offer with the New York Knicks, man. And just so happened to be that Coach Clifford was a good friend of Jeff Van Gundy, right? Jeff Van Gundy actually come to our practices during the lockout, that lockout year. So he came to our practice. He saw his practice a few times. Anyway, so Cliff, after a stop at one university, maybe two, he ended up with the New York Knicks advanced scout, right? Steve Clifford, advanced scout, and then assistant coach. So he calls me up one day and says, "Hey, there's a job opportunity here that you may be interested in. I think you'd be a good fit for." And I was like, "Wow, really?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I want you to come and interview for it and see what happens. So I came in and interviewed.
Shout out to my boy Oscar Holt. That's how you took
Oscar Holt. Wow. Throwback. See, Oscar was in the position before I was. Yeah. When I got there, interviewed for the position, and it was cool, man. I got the job. Interviewed with a couple old school, like Matt Harding, who I think is who's still with the Knicks. Yeah. Shout out to legend Mike Sanders. Mike Sanders was a coach there for a while, so I interviewed with him, and maybe even Saeed.
You have to talk to Jim Sand too?
No, Jim was too busy, man. He was in a dungeon.
Dungeon,
right? Because Matt was Jim's assistant at the time, right? Second in charge. And so I was in a dungeon. Jim was always in a dungeon, man, and editing and film. And anyway, so I got that interview with those guys, and then got to interview with Jeff Van Gundy. And one day I'm driving from I used to work at Long Island Lutheran basketball camp over the summer. And I'm driving from Long Island Lutheran in my little Honda Accord, and it's Jeff Van Gundy calls me, say, "Hey, Chris, this is Jeff Van Gundy. Man, I almost crashed my car, bro." I was like, "Who?" I was like, "Coach, how you doing?" Flip phone back then, whatever it was. And Jeff offered me the position, and it was an administrative position. And Jeff told me, "I'm not looking for another coach right now. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone that's gonna, yes, be able to hop on the court and help out, rebound, and think from time to time. But your main job is gonna be administrative work." I'm like, you know what? I take it because it's an opportunity to get your foot in the door. And then, that's when thank God for Jeff Van Gundy and Steve Clifford, for putting me in that position. And, shout out to my man Rebel, who, Robert Boyd, who really got me involved in basketball, at Edison and Floyd and my coach Floyd Banks, who was my coach. Those guys, they saw me in the gym one day and say, "Chris, you're gonna try out for the team, right?" I was 6'2", 170. I thought I was gonna play football. My high school didn't have a football team anyway. So, man, those guys kind of reeled me in and said, "Hey, you gotta go try out for the team and see what's up." And I couldn't even make a layup in ninth grade. It's crazy. Couldn't make a layup.
Well, you started in 2001, and obviously you worked there for 15 years. What made you say, "You know what, this is the spot for me" for a while? That you fell in love with working for the organization, and you knew this would be a path that you would take to help you succeed in life.
So when with the Knicks, obviously it was great to be associated with a brand such as the New York Knicks. I mean, dude, it's one of the greatest sports organizations in the world, right? I mean, one of the biggest brands in the world, and so it was it was a no-brainer, first of all, to go for an interview, and it's being a part of an organization. like it was, you grew up rooting for. I mean, I got a Bulls jersey back there. I grew up rooting. Scottie Pippen was my man over here. Like, I wanted to be like Scottie Pippen, Larry Johnson, and Charles Barkley. That goes to show you who, the small forward position. And then, your heart was kind of like, when I was on a low, like a serious Knicks fan, on the low, but more so rooting for my. Anyway, so it was great to be a part of that brand. And then once you were there, it honestly was hard to leave because you saw the potential in what the brand, does for you personally. But if we win, it's like, this could be larger than life, right? That's how you looked at it at the time. And, like, people, I don't know what, you hear the things about Jim Dolan. Jim Dolan gave everything. He gives you everything that you need as far as an organization is concerned, right? As far as your athletes, he takes care of your athletes. He takes care of, the staff. Like, he gives you everything you need, right? So it was it was cool to be a part of that and learn the business of basketball from within such a prestigious organization as the New York Knicks, a coveted position, a coveted role within an organization that was so well respected as far as a brand is concerned. And so it was a great learning process because, one, the brand, two, I was on the basketball operations side. So you got the opportunity to meet a lot of people and to learn from a lot of people, their styles, right? Of whether it be coaching, right? We had a lot of coaches doing my stint, general managers, presidents, right? There was a lot to be learned. And you do learn. You learn a lot. You learn what to do and learn what not to do. And I was able to, just get a lifetime experience within 15 years of being with one organization, because of the revolving door, of leadership.
Who would you say in those 15 years were some of your mentors that you actually would lean on to help you with your career?
Mentors. I mean, there were a lot of people that I looked up to and respected. I think Herb Williams probably is number one. Right, Herb, you can't go wrong with Herb Williams, man. Stand-up guy, shoot straight, tell you like it is. And it was so much respect for Herb. There was a great deal of respect for. I mean, honestly, there was respect for. I respected all of them so much, even if I had my differences. Like, Herb was, first of all, Herb's is a stand-up guy. Herb was the man, right? I learned a lot from Herb. I learned a lot from Jonathan Soprano. I learned a lot from Isaiah. I learned a lot from Isaiah Thomas, right? It's Donnie Walsh. Like, there was so many different coaches that came through there and different people that came through there. It's like I didn't have a mentor per se, but I would say, as far as like people that you looked up to and really learned a lot from, and Allen Houston, whether it be from character to business, it was so many, bro. That's what I'm saying to you. Like, it was hard to say, I'm going to leave this right now because there was so many different people put in front of you for you to really learn a lot from.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the impact of the building of the relationships over the years have done. How has that still helped you today with all the people that you've met?
Yeah, so no, it's big, man. There's a lot of things that I like to, there's one main thing. So when I talk to kids and I talk to people, I talk about, hard work ethic, reliability, likability. And I kind of put network over here because it seems like a cliche, right? But the reliability, the reliability, the hard work, and the fact that people like you, that leads to you building a network, right? And so my years there of just meeting different people and maintaining a lot of different relationships has played a role in my growth professionally, obviously, because of that network. I was able to take take those relationships, whether it be personal or professional, and use that to move on to my, the next step in my career, which is now the Players Tribune, right? That's what I got the hat on over here, right? Which is now the Players Tribune. But, like, it sounds so cliche, but, like, before we used to say, hey, before social media was so big, like, everybody's talking about, you build your network, get to meet people, all this other stuff. Social media is a perfect example of that, right? You have followers, and your followers then become your network in which you communicate with, and people who follow you are interested in your life and you're interested in their lives, and you kind of grow together, right, to a certain extent, right? So social media is a perfect example of, like, hey, your network is important to your growth, whether it be professional, personal, whatever it might be. But your network is huge, and my network has been very beneficial for me.
One thing like years later, you work your way up to vice president. Like, how was it for you? Like, when the day that you get the phone call that we're saying, "Hey, Chris, we're gonna name you a vice president." When I was told, I was like, Chris. When you got that call and you worked your way, like, knowing you put in all that work, because people don't really realize behind the scenes how many hours you put in, especially during the basketball season.
Yeah.
Let alone, you knew I was at the Garden, I would be behind the scenes. I would sleep at the Garden a lot of times. You dealt more, I dealt with players, but you dealt with players like on a 24/7 basis. You got stories for years and stuff, for decades and stuff like that. But
how the grades? I'm hiding the grades.
Yeah. So how was it for you when you finally got that call?
So as that process was happening, and I didn't mention Glenn Grunwald. Glenn Grunwald was responsible for that, right? There was conversations, renegotiation of, like, my contract, and Glenn. I think it was Glenn that mentioned it, or maybe it was actually no. I'm sorry. It was me that put together what that position was going to be, right? Like, what that. Glenn said, I'm looking to promote you. Work, talking about, we having a conversation about my contract, my agreement. And Glenn was like, let's put some stuff together. Let's figure this thing out. Right. So Glenn played a major role in that, man. As far as, like, I put together what I thought my role should be moving forward. Laid out this big plan. Here's what the job description looks like, in my opinion. Here's a little bit of a strategy moving forward. Put together everything, man. Glenn loved it. He's like, listen, there's one thing that you left out of this whole thing, which you play a major role in, is marketing, right? He's like, because the way I set it up initially was vice president of team operations and player development. He says, no, vice president of team, and he said, add this portion into it, add it to your job description, vice president of team operations, marketing, and player development. And Glenn played a major role in that, and we had those conversations going back and forth. There was also a position on the business side with our boy Dan Gladstone, which was player, not player. What did Dan was community relations stuff.
Community reach, yeah.
And there was a VP position there as well.
Shout out to Dan.
Right, but there was a VP position there as well. So, I was looking at both, and I was kind of trying to combine a little bit, because I in my position, I kind of did it all. Mm-hmm. So, because everything had to do with players, I was pretty much a middleman for it. And so anyway, to make a long story shorter, I'm going to, so yeah, that's how it kind of came together, man. It was kind of cool going back and forth, and Glenn Grunwald played a major role in making that happen.
Now, talk about the balance of relationships, because you deal with a lot of players. You dealt with. I mean, with the Knicks, we had new players. It felt like every year. Relationships, yeah, it was definitely a revolving door. Talking about, like, you had to deal with egos, and how did that make? Because I thought you was great at it, but what made you great with dealing with so many different type of personalities?
I don't know if I was great, Edgar, because I lost my cool sometimes too.
Well, you yelled at me a couple of times with you.
It was hard, man. It was hard. But me being a Christian, and like now, right, really working on my relationship with God, and really growing in that direction. I realized what it was then, right? I had a great deal of patience, right, and I had to develop that patience. Just dealing with people in general, right? So as you grow, you develop patience. You develop more patience. If you really want something, anything that you want, you're gonna put your mind to it, get it done, right? Because that's gonna make you happy and it's gonna make you successful, right? And so my big thing was working on my patience as a person, and I was able to do that. Like I said, with the help of a lot of people, right? Herb Williams, big time, was helpful in that department. Over the years, conversations with even like the Knicks mental health, mental performance coach, like Dr. Sweet, right? Conversations with him, conversations with Mike Woodson. You know what I mean? Like there's a different conversations over the years, helped me, to really understand the professional athlete, and then being able to use what I've learned from those people, and just dealing with certain athletes, and dealing with athletes on another level too. Like, like Quentin Richardson, who I'm friends with to this day, right? Quentin Richardson, Jamal Crawford, like I'm even credit guys like Zebo, right? Just to how you go about moving, right? Even Larry Johnson, by the way, right? So Larry, I'm going back. Larry won't remember this, right? I may have reminded him. So you mentioned Oscar, right? So that summer I get hired. Larry comes in. I think he was signing his agreement to like part ways with the Knicks or something like that. So he was coming in to meet with I forget who it was at the time, who the general manager was at the time. And he's coming in, and it was just me and Larry sitting there. He's like, "Hey, man, where's Oscar?" I'm like, "Oh, he's gone, man. He left. I'm replacing him, etc." And he was like, "Oh, man, I should have picked that man's brain a little bit more." And he's like, "I had no idea he was leaving." I said what's up to him a couple of times. We talk here and there, but I didn't really sit down and have conversations with him. And he said some stuff to me that day, and I was like, obviously, because Larry Johnson, Grandmama, you sit there. I'm sitting there like tuning in. And even that, starting from that point, even was able to help me grow. Mark Jackson in that locker room, Howard Isley, those guys kind of. Thank God we had those. I had those veterans to start out with, to kind of teach me how to move, right, in that space, right. Mark Jackson, Marcus Camby, Latrell Sprewell, Howard Isley. That's who was in the locker room when I started, right? Mm-hmm. Allen Houston, right, and so they kind of set the tone for me. As a professional, and how to deal with athletes and certain expectations, like, and so that, along with all the people I met along the way, man, I was able to learn a lot from them and be able to deal with athletes. I was not perfect, I was not great, because, like I said, I lost my cool at times too. But for the most part, I held myself down and did well.
But you definitely saw, like you said, you came in with veterans, but then as years with the Knicks, we got younger, and players in the league got younger. So you had to figure out a way, like, all right, now I need to relate to these guys. Now you're old.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Like, we came with the old heads, right? And we were young, and then this started happening, right? Like, okay, we the same age. Now I'm the old head. Yeah. Like, I was like, what's going on, man? It was, but that was a pretty cool thing to really be a part of, and then actually transition through the transition, like, the whole, like, it was pretty cool, man. I enjoyed that experience, man. I really did.
So, after, your 15th year, I remember when you called me and you was like, it's over. And I was shocked. Like, I hung up the phone. I was like, nah, I know me, I was there a long time. I didn't want to leave,
That was it, man. It was over, man. The jersey,
we lost you. Oh, there you go. Huh? And then, I didn't want to leave. I got kicked out. So
you're not going to talk about that, Edgar.
But, you decided to, like, part ways. How hard was that for you?
It wasn't. It wasn't hard at all. I mean, at that point in my career, I knew I didn't want to be a general manager. I didn't want to be a president. Like that wasn't I cared too much about the athlete as people, right? I'm not saying that general managers and presidents don't. I'm saying like my goal was different when it came to the athletes, and then so I knew it was time to leave. I knew it was time to leave maybe 3 years before that. But the things that I wanted, the things that I was being offered I didn't feel it, right? Did not feel it. And so this opportunity came along, and it's crazy because like it was a jump, right? It was like it was a startup company, right? It's Players Tribune. Derek Jeter started this company, and it's like it represents the voice of the athlete. And I'm like, it sounds like a dope concept, but I don't know, right? And my friend Michelle, she actually started with the company, right? She was at the Garden. She went over to GQ, and then she went to the Players Tribune and was a part of the startup, initial startup of it. And I'm telling you something, I was nervous about doing it, but you know, I was like, I trust my heart, I trust my gut. And my gut was telling me, "Oh, this is it. This is the opportunity you've been waiting for," because it kind of kept you in a space of, I'm protecting athletes the same way. Not that they need my protection by any means, but the voice, to represent the voice of an athlete through media, where the athletes are involved in the process of publishing and of producing and publishing their own content. I was like, oh, that's dope, right? Because media kind of chops up their words and do all kinds of stuff and create headlines. We don't do that, right? We are genuine to that voice, which is really cool. But when I left the Knicks, to answer your question, no, it was a seamless transition as far as like I knew my time there. At that period, it was time to move on. No one was forcing me out. It was just like I just went with my gut, and I listened to what my gut was telling me, and you kind of prayed on it a little bit, and listened to what God was telling me, and I was like, all right, it's time to move on, and I moved on. And now the transition at the Players Tribune initially was tough, right, because it wasn't what I was used to with the Knicks, right, and a bigger organization. And you have a smaller company, startup company in a startup phase, and it's like, oh my, what's going on here, like, and so that was a real learning process, and that was the hardest part of the whole thing of leaving the Knicks, was the transition to the new company.
Yeah. So now you go to the Players Tribune, and now you got to figure out a way how to. It's a startup, and you become this. Your relationships with athletes, and you're like, all right, I got to figure out a way how to build content. And I don't think you've never done that before.
No, we stayed away from the media and content, right? That was right. That's what got you in trouble.
Me and you would talk about it. Because you knew what I was doing on the side.
Okay.
But I knew you was watching. But so my thing is, what made you say, you know what? I think I could develop content.
So at first, it wasn't about developing content. For me, it was more about this continue that mission of the Players Tribune of providing a platform for the athletes, providing a voice for the athletes. That where their words weren't twisted and turned around. So for me, it was more about bringing the athletes to this thing that I trust and believed in. Right, that was the initial thing. Like, okay, all right, dude, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. You guys need to take advantage of this moment and need to really be a part of this. And so that's where my mind was initially. And then as I learned, I'm like, okay, there's some ideas here. And then also listening to the athletes that I'm friends with, and hearing what they're good at, and paying attention to what they're good at, and also paying attention to what they wanted to hear and wanted to see. I think at that point it was like, okay, it's not easy, but this is like, oh, this is doable, right? If this is what they want, it means that this is what everybody wants, right? That are fans of them or in their network, right, as athletes. So that's where the understanding of like developing content really came along. And I'm by no means a content developer, you know what I mean? But I'm surrounded by some great minds in the content space. Like you can see some of the stuff we're doing right now, and you have Knuckleheads podcast, which is everyone loves. You have now we just kicked off like something, the text message talk show. Like that's unique in its space, right? That's different. And so you have these great minds, man, that come together, and I love being a part of it. And I have a big say in a lot of the stuff that we put out or we're thinking about putting out. Knowing my relationship with the players and my experience with the players, and now my experience with content, it's actually an honor to be in that space, especially being closed out from that space for 15 years of my career and my life, right? Not dealing with media and content to like being submerged. It's fun, man. It's fun, and I think the players love what we do.
So how did the whole process of the Knuckleheads come about?
Oh man, that started with two stories. It started with, first we did a story, Quentin Richardson kind of telling his story growing up in Chicago, right? Which he's never really done. Okay, so he gives a little snippet, and Quentin has been through a lot, all right, especially with the death of his brother. Like there was a lot there, right, to unpack. And then we published a year later a story of Darius Miles, who's one of Quentin's best friends, right? So Darius was going through what he was going through, right, after the loss of his mother, right? And we were able to tell his story, as they say nowadays, tell his truth, and which was all just, and all y'all getting is a snippet of their story, right? And so what happened is the fans they really took to it. Oh man, Darius, where's Darius been? It's so good to hear from Darius. I know it's like he's going through so much, and they kind of the sentiment was there. Like they wanted more. So we did some Reddit AMAs, did some Reddit stuff. Did some stuff on Twitter. Darius and Q here and there, and then me and Q was sitting around talking about a potential podcast. Right, this is me and Q just kicking it. And Q is he's very proactive. He's very innovative. Like he's always thinking of different ideas. So we were talking, and he was like, man, he was like, yo, we should, man, CB, we need to do a podcast. Trying to figure it out. So he had us talking. I was like, actually, that might be a good idea. And then let's think about the culture, right? Think about the culture of sports. So people remember Q&D most famously for their celebration, right? Right? Two young kids came to the league together as friends. And they would do boom, 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 2 taps to the head, boom, 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 2 taps to the, after every 3-point, after every dunk, jumping on top of each other. Always like it was like a certain energy that people remembered. Even the old heads, right? The OGs at the time was like, yo, y'all celebrating too much, but I love y'all. Y'all are good, right? And because they did it with respect. Anyway, so because of the culture that loved the Q&D, when they were doing their Knuckleheads thing back in the day, the Knucklehead celebration, that was kind of easy to kind of tap into that audience again when they put out their stories, because people haven't really heard their stories, haven't heard from them in a long time in that way. And so we were able to take that and transition that into, okay, let's try a pilot. We tried a pilot. Pilot was phenomenal, right? And we were able to get Hennessy on the phone. Our sales team was able to get Hennessy on the phone and for Hennessy to buy into the idea of this podcast that we haven't really, all we have was a pilot, right? And Hennessy loved it, thank God. And our sales team was phenomenal. Hennessy loved it and jumped on for the initial season, and we were able to put something out, and it was a hit. And so that just kind of rolled into where we are today, like 4 million downloads. You know what I mean? Like it's great, man. And we have a great team behind it. Like, Carl Scott, who's now head of content, was part of his vision too, as far as how we are where we are. You have Ashley. Ashley kind of helped. Ashley was more so responsible for the look of it, and kind of help bringing that together. It was it was great, man. So we have a great team around Knuckleheads, and we're looking to create more great things like that. But that's kind of the story. I hope I told the story. I kind of rambled, but okay. Hope I told.
So talk about like some of the guests that you guys had on. Obviously you had a lot of some of the players that used to play with us and stuff like that. Kobe Bryant, one, may he rest in peace, was a great. How did that come about? Where Kobe was like, you guys, he's going to do it.
Yeah, well, Kobe's a supporter of Kobe's TBT family, man. He supported everything that TBT did, man. So that was big. But the biggest thing was his relationship. Like none of this stuff happens, right, without Q and D and their relationship with the athletes, right? Q and D is the one that if athletes didn't love and respect them so much, we wouldn't be where we are with Knuckleheads, right? So those relationships and that respect amongst men and athletes was big. It's 100% what makes it a successful podcast, and that's what it comes down to. So rest in peace, Kobe, man. That's what Kobe and his relationship with Q and D and the Knuckleheads is what brought that together.
So how does it make you feel? Like, did you ever interact with Derek Jeter before?
Before all this?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you started with the Player Tribune, did you ever have a sit down with him and have a conversation and say, pick his brain a little bit?
Yeah, we sat down, we talked, man. Derek is a cool dude, but we knew about Derek before. Like I knew about how cool he was and how good of a person he was before I started with the Knicks, right? What's his name? He's a cop now. He was a ball boy for the George, right? George was telling us the stories of how Derek looked out for him.
Looked out big time,
right? So that's another thing that made it easy for me to transition to the Players Tribune because we ain't gonna say like Derek looked out for George as a kid, for a kid that he didn't really know, and took care of him and got him started right into his professional career where he's at today. And it's like, so that translated big time for me. Just that one story, that one tidbit, right? And then also knowing who Derek was, he's up here. Like, man, that's big, man. So anyway, so before I met Derek, I knew about Derek the person, right? And then to sit down and have a conversation with him, it was a bit surreal. Sitting there talking, and we've been around this thing a long time. We're not really, starstruck by anything. And I wasn't starstruck, but at the same time, like, man, this is Derek Jeter, bro. Like, I'm rocking the Yankee fitted because of Derek Jeter. You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool. But yeah, now we sat down, we talked, and man, Derek played a major role and still plays a major role in how we move as a Players Tribune.
And you have I know you got to go soon. You have a brand new show out, a texting show. You want to explain that?
Oh man, text message talk show. I don't know if I could explain it, man. But it's pretty cool, man. It's something that our content team came up with a while back, and we were trying to figure out how do we do this, man. And so text message talk show is hosted by Darrell Wright, right? People probably don't remember who Darrell Wright is, right? Miami Heat, right? Darrell Wright is a great person who has a lot of great relationships, right? With athletes throughout the league, right? Because he's a good dude. He built up his network and people liked him. People like having him around. And so Darrell was able to develop his relationships and now, and he has a great personality. Like he's funny. He's kind of goofy at times, whatever it is, man. But he's fun, man. And so anyway, and it's funny. So Q and I was talking about Darrell, and I asked him about Darrell, and he kind of gave me the scoop on Darrell, which was pretty cool. And so from that, just talking to him as we were trying to figure out who the hosts are. We had like one or two other names in the hat, and then we kind of narrowed down Darrell because of his personality, and also because of his relationship with athletes, which was big, man. And so anyways, we created a text message talk show, which is exactly what it says is exactly what it is. It's dudes. It's not just dudes, but it's athletes over the phone. No different from you and I having a text message conversation. That and every one of us have a little bit of nosiness to us, right? Like every one of us got a little bit of like, what's going on over there, right? And so it's kind of cool to see them engage in conversation via text. And so we were able to take something that's so natural and so organic and make it into something special, where we call a text message talk show hosted by Darrell Wright, where Darrell, the first episode of him talking to CJ and Dame, which is huge, right? Talking about the bubble.
Oh.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? And then today's episode dropped. Have you seen it yet? Have you checked it out yet?
Today? No, not yet.
Okay, I'll let you check it out. Today's another special episode. I'm not gonna take what it is, but check out today's episode of Text Message Talk Show with Dora Wright and special guests. But no, it's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool concept. And check it out on your phones if you can, so you can really get the real feel for snooping through people's text messages.
So I would say, do you ever sit down like when you're home and say, "Man, I've had it pretty good," and what would you tell a 21-year-old Chris Bernard today?
No, I've truly been blessed, Edgar. Like, truly been blessed. It's been a lot of work, rising to the position that I'm in, and I don't take anything for granted. What I would say is what I said before, right? Is hard work, right? That sounds cliche. Once again, hard work it sounds cliche, but it's a real thing. Everyone that you see in the positions that they're in, where they had to work to get to that position. So I started out as a young kid running around Rider University and Adelphi University, not knowing what I was going to do in my life. I was going to play a little basketball, to where I am now, which is like, this is still kind of like, this is unbelievable. But I worked hard, man. I'm not gonna play that part down. Then reliability, right? You got to be reliable. People got to be able to trust that they could give you something to do and that you're going to accomplish it in a timely period. It's important, all right? And accomplish it in the right way, all right? You're not pissing people off. You're not doing this. You're not doing anything. Like you are, focused at the job at hand and getting that job done to the point where people appreciate what you have accomplished in that, in the task that they're giving you. And then, like when I say people liking you, it's like the third thing is people liking you. People have to like you, period. All right. It's not about being cool. All right. And everyone is not going to like you. But at the same time, it's like if the majority does, then you're doing something right. Right. You may not even know. You may not even understand the job that you're being asked to do, but the person likes you enough to have you around, to kind of even teach you the job, right? To want to have you there, right? Like that's important, right? So then now you're in that position where they're like, okay, now you have to work hard, and then while you're working hard trying to figure this out, I got to trust that you're gonna accomplish it, right? So it's kind of like it all plays into one another. And then my last thing is like, is it goes back to my next day, one of the slogans that I kind of came up with. It's like, how do you want to be remembered, bro? Like, how do you want to be remembered? All right. And so that should play a major role in who you become, right? How do you want to be remembered? And I think about that all the time. As I go about my daily routine, and then I'm, the last thing I'm going to say, it's like a pastor. You have different closings. All right. So the last thing I'm going to say is, I'm a Christian. All right. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in my relationship with Jesus. Like I believe in that. And that is what motivates me. Right. And I know that it comes with trials and tribulations. I know that nothing's going to be perfect. Right. I know that there's going to be lumps in the road and bumps in the road, whatever it might be. And I'm gonna get knocked down but I'm gonna get right back up. It's okay. All right. And so because of that relationship, that has taught me that. And I put my trust in God. I don't put my trust in people, right? Because people are going to disappoint you 100% of the time, right? But knowing what that mission is, like knowing what Jesus went through, like it's nothing compared to what I'm going through as a person. Anyway, but my point is, man, like you just gotta be liked, hard work, reliability, right? And how do you want to be remembered?
Chris, like I said, I love you, your family, we don't. Sometimes during quarantine, we talk every once in a while. We catch up, and that's it. But I still got to come over and see the baby.
Hey man, I told people that quarantine is a thing, but at the same time, man, we come outside, hang in the backyard. You can sit over there. We can have we can have a little hot dog and chop it up a little bit. And the kids can be in a little kiddie pool, unless in the pool. You ain't got a big one. You got a little kiddie pool. Definitely come hang out, man. I'm all for it, man.
I appreciate your time. I know you got to run, but like I said, thank you again, man. It's been fun, knowing you for so long and watching you grow.
No, I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate the invite. Anything you ever need from me, man, especially when it comes to talking about this thing of like just growing as men
we still got to do the thing we talked about before about helping the kids. So we got to make that happen.
Yeah, no, honestly, 100% I'm down for that anytime. So, let me know, bro. And I thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it.
I know I wouldn't say your Instagram because you're behind the scenes, and I know you don't like being on Instagram. You pop up every once in a while. That's it. So I'm not going to say what it is.
It doesn't matter. It's all good. I mean, it's out there now, right? But it's Bernard. I don't even know what it is. I think I changed it from. I had it at Air Nard before. It was crazy. I was like,
yeah, Air Nard.
I was like, that was some high school-ish, man. Air Nard. So I changed it to Chris A. Bernard, man. So.
I'll shoot you a text, man. I appreciate you. I'll hit you up in a few.
All right, brother. Love you, man.
I love you, kid. Later.